patience, being able to block quite a bit, moving around with movement. I know when you are going to press, and I press ahead of you, and kablam, you get counter hit, and then comes the trademark Bryan gigantic combo. What's up guys, TheMainManSWE here, hoping you're all doing awesome as always. I posted a Kazuya beginner's guide, like truly a beginner guide, like what are the absolute fundamentals and basics of playing Kazuya, and a lot of people seem to like it. And then I got a request from a couple of viewers to please do one for Bryan, and I thought we could do that today. And Bryan, just like with Kazuya, as I stressed with that video, like Kazuya is one of the hardest characters to play in Tekken 8. He's like top 1, top 2. But up there, I would say like top 4 difficulty is Bryan. Bryan is insanely difficult to play. And this is where you can hear with the community like, oh no, he's brain dead, just spam this button. You're going to have to take my word on it that he is unbelievably challenging. And all people have to do is try to play him themselves, and you'll quickly see that you're not gonna climb the ranks quickly. I myself actually am struggling to get this character to Tekken God Supreme. So that's the rank before the highest rank, God of Destruction. I'm struggling to go from Tekken God to Tekken God Supreme. Even though I've devoted a lot of time to this character, years, because it is so difficult. This is the key to a strong Bryan. Patience, being able to block quite a bit, moving around with movement, and then one really well-placed attack. Like this, and it will counter hit if we interrupt our opponent, right? That's a counter attack. I know when you are going to press, and I press ahead of you, and kablam, you get counter hit, and then comes the trademark Bryan gigantic combo. This is what Bryan is all about. Bryan has some of the best counter hit launchers in the game. So again, what is a counter hit launcher? It's an attack where a normal hit, it has an effect like this. +8, we deal damage, right? But if we interrupt our opponent pressing, we get a launch. Bryan has some of the coolest counter hit launchers and utility in the game. This is the core essence of this character when you're a beginner. You interrupt your opponent with an attack, and then you do a huge ass combo. Huge ass combo. If you're going to play this character, you actually don't want to keep it basic with combos. You are, with time, going to want to learn the biggest combos. Because the reason this character's S tier is because when you land your counter hit, you will follow through with an enormous combo. This is the whole point. You did the right thing. You called him out, you got your counter hit, and now you are gonna follow through with 100 damage, wall to wall travel, get him on the wall, right? And there you're going to deal absurd damage. Except that just dropped, okay? And then he's going to stand back, right? And you're gonna pressure him. This is Bryan in a nutshell. You have patience, good reads on your opponent, interrupt them, counter hit, 1,000,000 damage. You gotta practice the biggest combos. I know I'm saying this to a beginner now, but I just want you to know what this character's about. That's it, in my opinion, in a nutshell. When we know what Bryan is about, let's just talk about key attacks now. Bryan players typically, if they're not here, they like to be somewhere around here, and now you have some of the best keep out attacks in the game. What I mean with keep out is don't approach me. Get the fuck off me. I showed you, this is 3+4, so both kick buttons at the same time, like this. This move will counter hit launch, as you just saw, It's also safe on block. It's actually minus 13, which means, you know, we should be able to jab you, right? But you see this pushback, right? There are characters that can punish this, but they are very, very few. This is one of your best buttons to throw like this. And then you have the orbital, which is another very good button in the neutral. This is up 4. This is also one of the best keep out attacks in the game in that it's almost impossible to whiff punish. Like you do this up like this. Even if your opponent sees you whiff this, he almost can't punish you. You're going to be able to block so quickly here when landing. And the fun thing is, if he presses any buttons into you, this will hit from so far away, because when your opponent presses, they extend their hurt box. And they will get clipped by this. They get launched, and you can run in and pick up with down back 2. These are 2 really important attacks. 3 plus 4. You stand like this. Even 3-4 into 3-4 is strong. And then up 4. In my opinion, don't do up forward 4 like this. Going forward, because you take unnecessary risk going forward. Now they can't jab you out of this, and you are airborne, so you'll get floated for a juggle. It's much better to just tap up 4, and he has no forward momentum. You want them anyway to press into you, to extend their hurt box and get counter hits, because you're all about counter hits. So again, this is arguably your most important attack, and then this one. And this is your keep out. Now, if you want to advance on your opponent, there are 2 attacks now that are going to dominate your neutral when you want to attack from this range. And it is mainly going to be for you as a beginner, and now we're going to get into Street Fighter inputs. It's going to be core circle back and core circle forward, like how you would do a fireball in Street Fighter. Bryan relies on a lot of these inputs for some of his most important attacks. But there are 2 of them we're gonna really stress now. And it's quarter circle back 1, this attack. You're gonna wanna get real comfortable being able to throw that out. And then it's an attack called Requiem, which is quarter circle forward 1 plus 2. These are 2 defensive attacks. And now we're looking at 2 offensive attacks to complement our neutral when we want to get in on the opponent. Quarter circle back 1 is incredible. It's a high that does pretty much everything we want in a high. It is a counter hit launcher. Of course, we're playing Bryan. Half the move list literally counter hit launches. And even if it doesn't counter hit, it will knock down, and we can take like a quarter circle back 4. Again, there's a lot of quarter circles on this character. This is a difficult character. You're a beginner on this character, and this move is very difficult to utilize well. But again, it's like I said with the Kazuya video, is that you want to practice doing the right thing. Always. So this is your bare minimum. Again, this is not a beginner character, but you are a beginner on Bryan, so these are going to be your first steps. This move is super strong, and you're gonna want it in your arsenal, but I'm going to explain now that it's a bit of a complicated move to utilize, but hopefully you're not overloaded on information already, right? We've said he's a counter hit launch character. You need patience and counter hit timing. 2 defensive attacks, and now I'm giving you 2 offensive attacks. So on block, it is +5, and it chips. This is very good for a counter hit launcher. +5, just like an electric, right? So we have an advantage here on our opponent if it hits on block, right? And it chips. If it counter hit launches, you want to run in, back to 4, right? And this is something you're going to practice. And now the reason I'm saying this is a complicated attack, it's because it took me quite a while to get good with this move. And it's not so much due to the placing of it here, or the execution, core circle back 1. It's more one of those attacks where you have to quickly react to like what just happened. If this is blocked, you gotta react to that quickly and go like, okay, what do I pressure with now? Can do another one, or you can start checking, right? Because you're at an advantage. If you get a normal hit, you need to quickly react and go, oh, guaranteed follow, right? And then if it counter hits, another, you have another response, which is, okay, run in, take the combo. This might sound trivial, but it takes quite a while to get good at that. Like, okay, what just happened? And then react accordingly. Because the follow-up here, you gotta be fast. And if you get the counter at launch, it's not super easy dashing in. Wait a little bit, and then back to 4. If you jerk it too fast, you'll run into a jet upper, right? So again, it's a bit of a complicated attack, but there's a reason I immediately mentioned this attack, and it's because it's so important to your neutral. That was the first aggressive button for your neutral. The next one is going to be Requiem. Requiem. This is core circle for 1+2. These two alone are brutal to deal with for the opponent. If they refuse to duck, this builds a tremendous amount of pressure. If they duck, this is a 50-meter mid-elbow. 50-meter. Like, this hits... You have no clue. It's almost like a projectile, in my opinion. That was a hit. An infinity reach mid-elbow heat engager. And now comes the really nice part. This tracks like crazy to both sides. If they step to the left, it's fully tracking. If they step to the right, they can actually step this attack, but they have to do like almost a perfect step. This is almost homing. On block, this is -9 and you've given up your turn. But to be honest, that's a small price to pay in my opinion, considering what Requiem affords you in terms of checking your opponent and space control in the neutral. You are going to get frustrated playing Bryan because he relies a lot on blocking. He just does. If you've seen me play this character, he'll block for 20 seconds. And then wait for his opportunity to take his turn. That's just life of a Bryan main. You have no fancy huge panic buttons. Bryan plays core Tekken. And it's certainly not about doing a snake edge to break someone's guard or doing this. Good Bryan players don't really rely on stuff like this. But again, you're a beginner Bryan, right? So what are your most important attacks? It comes down to jab checking opponents. Anytime you build momentum on your opponent, you're going to check their patience. You're not going to have great pokes to go like jab into down forward 1, into, you know, generic poking. You're more so going to learn to test people's patience. How can you do this? Well, it's quite simple actually. Just doing jabs like this, +1. You're going to mix that with 1-2. Can just do 1-2 alone. And then you can do 1-1, very delayable. 1-1 is a natural on counter hit. So again, just checking like this. If they press from there, my jab is +1. If they press there into 1-1, this is unnatural on counter hit. You get 32 damage into +6. This is insanely strong. If they block that, I'm safe at -6. Bryan is safe here. And it's high, mid, right? Last hit is delayable. And if a last hit connects, counter it launch, right? This string is the backbone of your pressure when you're standing right next to your opponent. Again, kissing distance. This is the backbone of your arsenal. And now you gotta get comfortable with the idea of not always blowing your wad immediately. The purpose of this character is not to do 1-1, 1-1, but it's more testing your opponent's patience and you mind gaming with how many hits am I gonna do now? Is he going to do a single jab? Is he going to do 1-2? Is he going to do 1-1? This alone has very strong mind game utility. 1-2, add the last hit, counter it launch. To really annoy your opponents, you can also do 1-2 free. This is now 1-2 into a low. Most people are going to eat this mix-up, by the way. especially if you're like a beginner, intermediate. Even at the highest level of play, there are people who can't block that low or low parry that low. Also, I would advise you to look at 1-4 and then doing stuff like this. Again, in terms of testing patience and how many hits am I going to do. This is 1-4, 2-1. So many people are not going to duck this. 1-4. You're gonna get away with that. And then you can add a 2 here. And this is a counter hit launcher. Like so. And you can go 1-4, 2-1. I just want you to get comfortable with the idea, I guess, of doing in an unpredictable pattern like these strings. And sometimes just doing 1 hit, sometimes doing 4, sometimes doing 3, sometimes doing 4. Because this is sort of the, again, essence of a character. Down for 2. You can check with this, which is a pretty poor 13 frame mid check. But being an elbow, it's unparryable. And then delayable, you can add a second hit. So again, you can add a second hit. And this will now be a counter hit launcher. Like so. So again, I'm testing your patience, right? Press into me. And you can do the same thing with down 2-3. Down 2-3. My personal favorite is back 3 1+2. This one. It's quite delayable. And this, like 1-1, is safe on block at -6. And the second hit will knock down into a guaranteed soccer kick. This is my favorite, like test someone's patience. And I also like this because you can do back 3 and hold forward into sliver step. Sliver step is Korsako forward. And from there you have Requiem. You can just hold forward here. Requiem. And you can cancel into holding crouch. And do a full crouch down back 1+2. Chains of misery throw. So these are the types of mind games you're gonna wanna do as Bryan. Back 3. Back 3 1+2. Back 3 sliver. So very interesting mind games, in my opinion. Another attack that's good to know as a beginner, again, because you're going to feel very frustrated when people press into you a lot, and you're going to be like, well, main man, I can't take my turn and start throwing this stuff. You're going to use a lot of, like, dick jabs, full crouch jab. But it's nice to know that as soon as you're crouching, you actually have panic buttons. You have this move, which is while standing free. This move is super nice. If blocked, it's -10, which is not bad at all. And most people you go up against won't even punish it. And this is a counter hit launcher. 12 frame startup from crouching. And you also have a threat of a follow-up attack that's very delayable. That's only also -10. And here you also have a mighty Northern Cross, which is crouch, down forward 4, slide into down forward 4. This is a really nice panic button because it's very evasive. And it will give you +13. And a great flow chart, a great sequence for those of you who are beginners is doing this from neutral. You feel a bit threatened, and when you think you have some frames to play around with, you can do down back 3, which will put you in crouch, into down forward 4. This will beat so many spammers. So many spammers. And if you do this at the wall, you can actually get a wall splat. Which is really nice. I think the last thing I would like to introduce you to in this beginner guide with Bryan is an attack forward 3 here. One of your best counter hit launchers. When you have momentum and you're checking again with jab 1-2, just know that jab into forward 3 is a very good button up close. Like forward 3 doesn't have a lot of range, but when you use it up close, it's a counter hit launcher. And interestingly, it's a counter hit launcher that's neutral on block. Most people here are gonna go like, oh, it's my turn. And when you do a jab string, and even like high-level players get counter hit here. So you just do 1-1, which is perfectly safe to throw here. Again, unless they do a hop kick or something, like Claudio. Or even forward 3 into forward 3. That's gonna be my beginner introduction to Bryan. It's very hard to pick up this character. He's very difficult. But hopefully you got the core essence of the character, which is the whole point of this video. It's not meant to be even an intermediate guide. These are just the basics as to... This is what makes this character... Only 100? Not even 1,000, you cheap-ass loser? This is the core essence of a character. And this is what makes the character tick. That's Bryan's heart, his heartbeat, right? And then you're going to build from here. But I hope you understand the basics now, at least. And I wish you luck with Bryan. He's an amazing character. He's so cool. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.